The planets have aligned, and once again, the prophecy has come true. That's right, folks. It's time for another episode of the Roundtable Rethink podcast with me, your host, Uncle Paddy, joined every week by twin brother in spare parts bin, Andy, the asshole.
Woo!
And only the surgeon's knife could keep him away from the podcast studio this week. That's right. TV Tel Aviv is not with us. He is lying in a hospital in the south side of Glasgow
with his mummified right hand. We don't want to make too much of this. Stephen's absolutely fine. He had a minor day surgery today, and he's resting up in the lap of luxury in a hospital in the south side of Glasgow, and shall be joining us not too long from now. So get well soon, mate. We love you.
With his new straight pinky. Anyway, what were we discussing this week? This week, we'll be discussing new model drops from Google, XAI, and OpenAI. We'll also be discussing whether we are in an AI bubble. And finally, we'll be discussing AI job displacement. What goes first, why, and in what timescale?
Oh my, that is a docket and a half.
All right, Andy, so why don't you kick us off then, and let's talk about the model drops this week. So since we got together 2 weeks ago, again, it's amazing how quickly the world changes. All three big labs dropped the latest and greatest versions of their frontier models. So talk us through that, or at least open up the discussion on that front.
So let's open up with probably the biggest point release launch out them all was Gemini 3.0. Mm-hmm. So it's been waiting on this for quite a few weeks now.
Feels like it's overdue.
It definitely felt like it was overdue. And anyway, like a lot of these things, it ended up being worth the wait. It is a fabulously capable model. So you're always worried about just to what level of detail to go in to try and make this listenable for people. But the kind of TLDR on the improvements in Gemini 3.0 versus the previous generation of models was, number one, it's now multimodal straight out of the box. So it's absolutely fantastic at reasoning across vision and audio as well as text and images and all sorts of stuff. And it's now got that as core capability instead of some kind of bolt-on before. And of course, that now powers the entire suite of products in the AI studio. Now, things like Vertex, things like VO3, their video generation model, things like Nano Banana Pro, something that we speak about here. So the underlying model that powers all of that is now Gemini 3.0. So let's just cover a couple of the benchmarks. In terms of reasoning, well, we've spoken in here multiple times about one of the hardest benchmarks out there, which is Humanity's Last Exam. Ridiculously impossible benchmark made up of thousands of PhD subject matter experts with their own hardball question for each domain. Previous generation of models have only managed about 17 or 18% of the benchmark when tested against it. And Gemini 3.0 has absolutely scorched right to the top of the leaderboard with 46% on Humanity's Last Exam, which is a ridiculous saturation level.
I think the crazy thing about that is Humanity's Last Exam only came into existence at the start of the year, and it was considered the last benchmark we'll ever need. Because when LLMs saturate this, there'll not really be a benchmark we can come up with to measure their intelligence because they'll be too smart.
And the models at the time were hitting 6%, 7%,
single-digit
8%,
percentage points. If you fast forward to March, the percentage points shot up to about 15, 16%, and now we're just leaping forward into the 45th, 46th percentile. And so it's pretty clear to me that in the next 12 months, that benchmark gets completely saturated.
The other notable things that came out in Gemini 3.0 was this agentic capability. So right across the Google Workspace suite of products, whether it's email, Gmail, calendar, all your productivity suite, Docs and Excel and stuff, they now have a super agent built into Gemini that can basically work and reason and complete long-duration agentic tasks across all of those products inside the Google family of productivity tools. So huge increase in agentic capability. And then the other big one that was worth mentioning was they now have a massively improved ability to code, and they've built their own anti-gravity development environment. So think of like a cursor In fact, you explain a wee bit more what Cursor is.
Yeah, an IDE is just an integrated development environment. It's an environment that every developer uses to code. There are many of them. Most of them are actually forks of an open source project called VS Code. So Cursor uses VS Code as a baseline. Windsurf uses VS Code as a baseline. And now Anti-Gravity is the latest VS Code fork with Google's version of this. So it's pretty clear to me that it came out the gate good, but not really good. But if you think about the resources behind that and you think about the resources available at Google, it's pretty clear that that thing is going to improve at a phenomenal pace. So I expect Anti-Gravity to get really, really good, really, really quick. When it came out the gate, I would say it was a solid 6.5 or 7 out of 10. Cursor still feels like a more polished professional product for coders. More model choices, more options, but man, it's a good opening gambit, and you know it's going to get fast. You know it's going to get really good really fast.
And so I'm a ChatGPT power user, so I spend a lot of my day inside of that. You have been spending a lot of time on Gemini, particularly on the new point release. What have you noticed actually farting about with it all day?
So the multimodal stuff is unbelievable. So there was Nano Banana, and we've talked about that previously on the podcast. There's a new rev of Nano Banana that came out alongside this called Nano Banana Pro.
Yeah.
And so the difference is, and as we've been saying ad nauseum on the podcast, the difference is it's just allowed to think for longer. It's a smarter, longer running version of Nano Banana. And as a result of that, it can solve much more complex tasks in a much higher quality way. So as an example of some of the new things that came out with Nano Banana, it can now produce 4K as its output. That is completely different to the previous version of Nano Banana. I think it was topped at 1080p. You can blend up to 14 different images in a single creation while retaining the identity of up to 5 people.
That's mental.
So it's got this long context memory and window.
Yeah.
That it does a great job of basically achieving coherence across a huge amount of objects in a scene. So as you continue to iterate on your image or the thing you're trying to create, and I showed you an example of a comic strip that I created earlier, if you ask for more and more changes to different subject matters or different subjects in the scene,
it's retaining the context for the previous.
Great coherence, only changing the things you've asked it to change and not changing anything else. And so that is a really, really big... So it can do different styles. It can do like studio lighting. It can do comic strip effects. It can do watercolor effects. It's basically now the Swiss Army knife of any kind of graphic creation.
Yeah.
And honestly, it's hard for me to imagine what the normal internet user would need now beyond Nano Banana.
For image generation and augmentation,
Yeah, for image
generation. Are we not stumbling across a theme here, which is the 140, 150 points of IQ that these models have aren't even been nearly used by the average user.
Yeah.
And actually, in order to get the most out of those IQ points, it's actually allowing the models to run for longer.
Yeah.
To actually use the intelligence to get the outcomes that we're looking for. That is a theme that's now cascading it across the models, right?
Anytime you hear the word thinking put at the end of something, or just compute, or deep research, it's the same underlying model. It's just been allowed to work for longer and reason harder and consume more tokens at every stage. So when you do a thinking query, there's reasoning tokens that get consumed in the background. You don't see it happening.
Unless you toggle on the thinking.
The model's got a budget for reasoning. No, even if you toggle on thinking, it reasons in the background. But when it's reasoning, it's using tokens. You don't see it happening on the screen. It's a background process. But these deep research agents and these pro agents and these thinking agents, they're just allowed to reason for longer.
Yeah.
And by reasoning, asking more questions, more follow-up questions, questioning its assumptions, questioning its output, and refining and refining and refining. Right now, what do we see the average response come back in for a thinking? A minute, a minute and a half. Imagine you would let it run for an hour or a day. And the quality of the problems
with that same 150 points of IQ, how much higher quality answer could it come back with? And that is a function of all the model makers racking substantially more GPUs towards the end of the year, right?
Exactly. So you're right in the middle of the Blackwell Ultra, the B300 rollout. So they're racking them. I actually saw a stat the other day. They're shipping 1,000 racks a week. So not 1,000 GPUs a week. These GPUs are in racks that have got hundreds of GPUs with this NVL72 networking.
So they come pre-networked and hooked up.
Pre-networked in a giant cabinet. Well, they're shipping 1,000 of them a week.
And you're just hooking the cabinets up.
So imagine of the hyperscalers, they're getting 1,000 extra of these a week. Each one delivers millions of tokens a second. And
each one is probably, 30 to 40 times an H100 equivalent for the previous generation of chips.
Millions and millions and millions of dollars. So these are massive improvements, and they're coming out at scale now, and the hyperscalers are getting them in their hands and racking them in their data centers, which I think is why you're starting to see performance across the board improve
for all the model makers.
And you see them get less flaky over time. Although, to be fair to Google, they've never really had this issue. Yeah. They've scaled this whole thing very gracefully, and we'll talk about why that is later in the podcast. So anyhow, without getting too more deeper into the weeds, great at multimodal, great at artifacts. So if you need to produce reports, or you need to produce dashboards, or you need to take something that's come back as output from Gemini and you want to turn that into a visualization, phenomenal at that kind of stuff. I don't have a specific example that I need this for, but apparently it's awesome at screen use.
Right, okay.
So tool use of computers. So the ability to understand the screen, be able to use a computer like a normal user. I just want to actually talk about how much it's improved in that area. So the state of the art before Gemini 3 came along was Claude 4.5. It scored 36.5% on that benchmark. The benchmark's called Screen UI. Gemini 3.0 scored 72.7%. Hard math as well. Claude 4.5, 21%. Gemini 23%. And agentic tasks. And I love this one because it's called Vending Bench.
I know.
And so Vending Bench is a simulated business. A vending machine business. And the AIs have a set of rules and a set of guardrails. And
it's got to control inventory, sales documentation, everything.
Supplier relationships, the whole thing. So it's a simulated world of a vending machine business.
Yeah.
State of the art was Claude 4.5. It was able to generate $1,600 from that vending machine. Plugged into the same benchmark, Gemini 3 has almost tripled that result and was able to produce $5,500.
Unbelievable.
So proving again that it's superior at long-running tasks that need reasoning over a very long period of time, and to maintain coherency across that reasoning. So anyhow, we'd seen benchmarks kind of, everybody would bring their new thing out. It would be 3%, 4%, 2%, 5% better than the next thing.
Yeah.
This is the first time that we've seen benchmarks that have been significantly better than what was there previously. Now, of course, as soon as Gemini launched that, Grok goes straight out the door with Grok 4.1, and then ChatGPT literally the following day was straight out the door with ChatGPT 5.1.
Yeah.
All sort of coming up to that level of benchmark. So I think the TLDR for normal people here who don't geek out on this stuff every day is there are no bad options.
Yeah.
So the great news is all the frontier models are awesome.
Yeah.
They're really good. And honestly, only the discerning would actually know the difference between them. They're all astonishingly capable. Yeah. So there's no bad choices. That's the good thing. And that's completely different to where we started the year.
Okay.
And I can't actually wait to do the look back.
Oh my God.
Because the improvements for the start of the year to the end of the year.
Remember when we did the grand announcement of ChatGPT 4.0?
Or 3.7? No, Claude 3.7. I remember that one. So here's how I would play it back to you guys. So let's start with the vibe, right? So Google 3.0 Pro, think about that as the PhD researcher, the project manager, serious, capable, autonomous, does great for the hardest tasks across the longest time horizon with the highest amount of reasoning. ChatGPT 5.1, the polished professional assistant, okay? Friendly, conversational, adaptive, really great daily driver. Grok 4.1, what's the vibe on that? It's creative. It's unfiltered.
It's less of a scientific boffin, and it's actually developed a bit of kind of...
It's got a personality.
It's got a personality now.
Which is a bit wild.
Yeah.
It's witty, it's unplugged, and it's connected to real-time data. Yeah. And so that's kind of the differentiator between the models for a vibe kind of perspective. If we broke it down to the next level, which is what is each of their superpowers? Gemini 3.0, doing stuff. Okay? looking at your screen, running code, solving problems, planning for long-term outcomes that need massive amounts of reasoning and agentic tool calls. Gemini now excels at that. What's ChatGPT awesome at? Conversation and nuance.
Yep.
It adapts to your mood, personality, and it's the best at writing human-sounding copy.
Can I just double-click on that for a wee second? Because I am a ChatGPT power user, and we've got a couple of dozen GPTs that we've built in-house that we interact with every day, and I noticed a instant and huge improvement in not just GPT adherence, not just its ability. So one of the big upgrades that was done with ChatGPT 5.1 was the adaptive routing. So that's something that used to be terrible on it. When they launched GPT-5 and you just put it on auto, and some of the requests, some of the more complicated requests for our GPTs, it would actually produce quite a bad answer because it was trying to retrieve the information too quickly. They seem to have really dialed in the adaptive routing. So stuff that I had to have toggled on to think or deep think, I'm now just putting on auto, and it's returning 4 times as fast, and it's getting me good quality output as well. So they seem to have done tons of work on the adaptive router.
And you know what? All these silly names and silly options are going away. Thinking, Grok Fast, Grok Reasoning, Deep Search, it's all gone away. You're eventually just going to ask these things that you want, and they'll figure out how much reasoning to apply to that request in the background. So you're starting to see that trend now.
But
the adaptive routing is getting very, very good.
But great. I notice a difference in reasoning and instruction following. It's definitely doing a much better job of doing exactly what we're trying to get it to do inside the GPTs.
Yeah. And then finally, the superpower for Grok is obviously it sees the Twitter and X posts in real time, instantly, has instant access to them, no delay, and it's got less corporate HR filtering built into it. So it's the kind of wild, unfiltered version of AI. So now that's not a bad thing. If you're hunting down like a ground truth physics problem, you're probably best to go and try Grok on the highest level of reasoning, because it's not going to get the answer confused with any filtering that might be applied at the corporate level, right? It's going to find the ground truth of that answer. All right, I think that's pretty much enough on the model choices. You happy with that? Or
I think your TLDR was right on that, which is there's no bad options at this point. At the frontier, the 3 or 4 main models are absolutely spectacular and getting better almost by the week. I mean, these point releases are coming thick and fast, right? They used to do big releases. So you know that Grok 4.5, which will be released before Christmas, is going to be another step forward.
4.2, I think it is.
I thought they were going to classify it 4.5. Yeah. Okay. But you know it's going to be another significant improvement on Grok 4.1.
And there's no end to it.
Yeah.
And it's amazing, right? Everybody's got their, it's almost like who blinks first, and then everybody goes.
Yeah.
So somebody launches their new shit, and then everybody goes within a week.
Yeah.
Then there's a delay. Somebody else blinks first, and everybody launches their new shit. And I don't see a time in the next 12 to 18 months where that's not going to be true.
I think 2026, with all the new compute coming on stream, is going to be a staggering year for model capability improvements. Yeah.
Wild.
Woo!
All right, now we move on to our second topic, which is...
Are we in an AI bubble?
Yeah.
This is a tough one. Again, there's so much nuance. There's so many moving parts to this question. You know, stock markets have been up and down the whole week as everybody gets a wee bit nervous at this kind of fork in the road that we're at with AI. So what fundamentally constitutes a bubble? What fundamentally constitutes a bubble is a set of unsustainable circumstances, right? So an unsustainable amount of buy-in, unsustainable valuations disconnected from fundamentals of businesses, unsustainable infrastructure build-out. And so you look at things, for example, like NVIDIA stock price today, and you say, well, I mean, it's crazy. They've had $1 trillion worth of, compute committed to them over the next few years. And so they've got a $5 trillion stock price. But you have to believe that at some point that compute build-out is going to slow down, because there's other moving parts to this model. The competitive landscape is changing all the time. So just in the last couple of days, we found out a few things. What did we find out? We found out that Huawei next year are going to launch something GB200, GB300 equivalent. And how does that affect the demand picture? We've also found out that a big emerging part of this is going to be computing at the edge. So instead of instead of intelligence that requires to be streamed for these gigantic data center clusters, it's going to be intelligence that lives on your phone or lives on your laptop and is streamed locally and doesn't require that type of compute. And then as Sundar said the other day, they're sitting with a whole bunch of TPUs racked, but can they turn them on because they don't have enough power generation?
Yeah.
And then the final part of this picture that I think is one of the main moving parts of it is everybody is nervous at the moment because up until now, the current generation of AI that's being used or how AI is being used in business isn't returning the results, both in terms of productivity, new sales growth, or costs saved for most businesses.
Yeah.
And so you've got a combination of all these things swirling and it's making markets nervous. This is the most financialized an industry's ever been. They reckon the top half a dozen companies like Oracle and OpenAI and you know, the half a dozen guys you think I'm talking about have committed to $1.2 trillion worth of debt, issued $1.2 trillion of debt to try and execute on this data center build-out program.
They call them the Mango companies now. It's Microsoft, Apple, NVIDIA, Google, and OpenAI. Yeah. Mango.
So you look at the problem inside of businesses, right? And you say, so AI adoption is still very fast inside of companies. But what do I mean by AI adoption? I mean somebody who's in their email and then pulls up Microsoft Copilot because it's free and it lives in the right taskbar and asks it some remedial thing or help me make this email, improve this email, or fucking here's a complaint, you know, help me write a response back to this customer. That was never really the promise of AI. That's just the remedial tier one tiny wee productivity improvements. The promise of AI is these agentic agents, these super agents that can go on these long duration tasks for you, complicated tasks, check and mark and improve their own work all the way through it while you go off and do something more valuable. And by and large, that capability hasn't materialized inside of companies yet.
Yeah, because there's a skill set and there's the lack of tooling. Companies don't have the right tooling. Companies don't have the right education, and companies don't have the right skill set at large to go and build these things. But it's not actually suppressing AI usage. So I know that every layer in the stack, there's problems, but the truth is people are still consuming more tokens than can be served, right? We don't have a glut of capacity that's unused. Every GPU that's racked is running at 100%.
Oh no, 100%. The question is, inside of companies, how many of these...
But how does this get back to the AI bubble thing?
Because this is what investors are worried about. Mm-hmm. Investors are worried...
I think investors are worried about...
This whole thing might be a busted flush if it doesn't show up in massive productivity improvements inside of companies or extra revenue.
I think the productivity's there, Andy. It's not being reported by the employees.
Well, it's one and the same thing.
So here's the truth, right? So it's being captured in pockets.
Yeah.
It's being captured in software engineering, right? The productivity improvements there are so gigantic. They're like 30, 40, 50%. It's obvious to see that is a massive productivity improvement. Whether developers are self-certing that and going to their boss and going, boss, I'm 40% more productive thanks to Cursor and Claude Code. Load me up.
Yeah.
That conversation's not happening, right? So here's the uncomfortable truth. And the audience is going to hate me for saying it, but it is the reality of the situation. Most AI productivity gains today are being converted into longer, more luxurious lunch breaks.
Yeah.
Fact. Because I know how productive I can be with AI.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even know fucking how to get what done.
Yeah.
Without all the tools I use to get stuff done now. I can produce reports and studies and fucking things that would have taken me weeks before in an afternoon.
And it's one of the challenges that we have with our AI implementation system, that when you get to the shadow AI audit and you ask people to self-certify, tell me what you're already using. It's an amnesty. It's no punishment. This is about finding out what's already working inside the business. You need to create a compelling sales pitch to the staff to why to do that. Because all they're doing is surrendering back all the time that they've saved for tasks that you didn't know they were using AI for.
Now, the other thing that I think is misunderstood is, don't forget, right? You need to build AI agents that solve problems and generate productivity improvements, get people time back.
Yeah.
Then a period of time needs to pass
before you extract the value.
You've got the productivity improvements. okay, what do we do with the new productivity improvements? How do we convert that into energy and effort that's closer to the revenues of the business? Then some time passes, and then these things start to impact revenue and earnings. And so we're just so early into this. But if you think about the progress we've made since January to December on usage inside companies, it's massive. And so 25 is where it became real. It went from being proof of concept to real, can't live without it, day-to-day stuff. 26 is the year where the agents and the tools, and don't forget, companies have tech stacks, right? So maybe you're invested in a tech stack that has no AI roadmap, because the truth is most businesses are going to home roll their own agents. They're going to leverage agentic capabilities inside the tech stack they've already paying for, right? If you're in Salesforce, you're going to use Agentforce. If you're in Zendesk, you're going to use Zendesk AI agent. If you're in Valaris, you're going to use Valaris's AI capabilities. So very few of these people are going to home roll these things. More and more of the SaaS tech stack that the company sits on will be infused with these AI agents, and that will be where the usage happens. But it takes a while, right? If you're not on these products, realizing that you're not on the product, realizing you need to be on these products, realizing that coming up with a budget to move, retraining all the people. So people are just too eager to see results that are absolutely on their way.
In the post, but just not going to show up in day one,
But they're just not coming quickly enough for some people.
So what what pricks a bubble? So you think about the competitive...
But I don't even think we're talking about the right things. We're talking about literally the most lowest part of the tech stack. The biggest problem with the bubble right now is you've got companies investing in hardware or making not even investing, committing to hardware a year in advance without the revenue to back the commitment in the hope that they can raise money at the right amount or grow revenues in order to honor the commitment.
And
that's what the markets are terrified of.
About.
Not that somebody in fucking the operations team's not using AI enough.
That you were kind of making my point for me. The point I was coming on to there was what pricks a bubble. So what pricks a bubble is OpenAI have made $1 trillion worth of hardware commitments on $14 billion worth of revenue, and revenue that is exponentially climbing for sure. But I looked at their own forecast today, and even through 2029, they're still planning, with exponentially growing revenue, they're still planning to lose $119 billion in that period between now and 2029. So all of that has to be financed by the debt markets. And the debt markets can be fickle. We could go into an economic downturn. We could go into a period of economic contraction. And then how forthcoming are these guys with the money at that point?
These numbers that you hear are not purchase orders.
No,
they're just verbal commitments.
But they're being recognised on the
recognized. Oracle got into a bit of trouble with this. Oracle became the most valuable company in the world for a day. And then we realised that, hang on a minute, where's the money to back these commitments? Are they actually commitments? Oh, no, they're actually just press releases.
Yeah, they're just press releases and words.
So that's what the market's terrified of. It's terrified that earnings are being inflated through press releases and commitments rather than purchase orders and earnings being realised.
And if one of these big companies
starts pulling back
or fails in any way, so here's a theoretical example that I'm just thinking about in real time. So Microsoft and Google fundamentally have more defendable business models because they've got revenue, gigantic multi-$100 billion revenue streams that are independent of selling tokens, right? So let's say there is some downturn in AI and it doesn't get picked up and they're not able to rack the GPUs and they can't sell enough tokens in the future. Well, they've got fantastic businesses to fall back on and lick their wounds and rebuild, right? OpenAI doesn't. Its only business model is selling tokens. Then you've got the other thing in play, which is, as you know, people that are running code bases, people that are developing on, whether it's, Codex or in these development environments, they can just toggle between models, and generally speaking, they're model agnostic.
There's no loyalty to any model.
If you look at token costs, for example, when ChatGPT 4.0 came out, it was $60 for a million output tokens. For ChatGPT 5.1, it's now $8. And Kimi K2 will sell you 1 million output tokens at 90% of the reasoning capability of ChatGPT for 41 cents. Mm-hmm. So you've got a flood of these open source Chinese models coming onto the market, which could potentially undermine somebody like ChatGPT's business model. As everything moves to GPTs and automations and agents, people will look for the cheapest, most efficient ways to run these things.
I get all that, but somebody's got to run the agent. Somebody's cloud's got to run Kimi K2.
Yeah.
Right? And Moonshot, who are the guys behind Kimi, don't have the inference capacity to serve the world. They have the inference capacity to serve a small niche that know that Kimi K2 exists, which is a tiny amount of people.
And DeepSeek and, you know.
So I accept the point. Open source models could be very disruptive to the AI industry and all the crazy valuations.
Computing at the edge,
Computing at the edge, good enough compute running locally. It is massively disruptive to these business models.
Of course it is, and that's where the third world's going to end up.
Yeah.
You know, these impoverished states in Africa aren't going to be signing up for ChatGPT licenses. They're going to get 130 IQ model that runs locally on a laptop that a teacher can use in a school to assist it to.
And don't forget, through distillation and all these quantization, all these techniques, models are getting smaller.
Yeah.
Much, much smaller.
Talking about a billion parameters or a couple of billion parameters that can run on your MacBook.
In 24 months' time, you could have ChatGPT 5 type intelligence running on your MacBook locally, not consuming any tokens from any cloud anywhere. And that will be good enough to get a bunch of tasks done across your computing environment. Here's there's only one company you need to watch, NVIDIA. If NVIDIA sneezes or hiccups in any way, the entire financial world catches fucking stage 4 pneumonia.
Yeah.
That is 100% going to happen. There will be a correction here, by the way. There's no doubt about it. And you know what? Power's actually going to be a very helpful gating factor to the rollout of AI. And we're actually going to be glad of it. If we had infinite power right now, this would be accelerating faster than it is right now.
And the bubble would potentially be inflating even bigger.
So I think, thank God we don't have enough power, because that will put some limitations
gravitational ceiling
on how much capital can flow into this. Each of the hyperscalers are spending about $100 billion a year on AI infrastructure right now, and plan to do that at least out to 27.
Yeah.
And so we have, from just 4 or 5 companies, we have $1.5 trillion to $2 trillion committed in the next 4 or 5 years. And that's 5 companies of probably 1,000 companies deploying AI infrastructure.
But as if we needed another...
Because there's a tier 2 and tier 3 guys that you
but
don't know.
As if we needed another variable thrown into the mix here. Both Sundar and Elon have both said just in the last week that the future isn't these kind of catch-all GB200s, 300s that run are great at, great generic solutions for compute, but actually a lot of these companies are going to be building their own fabs, creating their own chips that actually run specific agentic workloads and tuning the chips to specific use cases.
That's true. It's not just as happy as it sounds, right? There is a reason the NVIDIA stack is just completely dominating because it's not just the hardware,
it's the software layer,
and all the optimizations that are done all the way down the stack. And today, NVIDIA still produces the cheapest tokens per watt. However, and they can handle reasoning, they can handle training, pre-training, and they can handle inference.
Yeah.
And so when you see Google buying millions of NVIDIA chips, they're not buying them to train Gemini models. They're buying them to offer capacity to their Google Cloud Platform customers, right? Just in the same way that AWS needs that in order to create capacity for their customers. Google train on their own TPUs, their tensor processing units. They were onto this 10 years ago. They saw it coming 10 years ago. And TPUs are an incredible advantage for Google because the amount of TPUs that they have right now and the capacity they provide, if they had to buy the same capacity of NVIDIA, they'd have to pay $40 billion more than what they pay for that TPU capacity.
And they can control production rate. And they don't need to,
so they don't have to create a 70% margin for Jensen.
And they don't need to share them with the rest of the industry either.
So they've got such a jump on this. AWS is doing its own. They've got something called Trainium. They're into their second generation of that. It's not as advanced as Google's TPU, but it's pretty good. And so it's pretty clear that AWS will continue on. But these will be for specialized workloads. Don't forget, Claude's just not going to automatically run on Trainium. There are optimizations and code base changes and compiling that would have to be done. So models don't freely move between all these hardware platforms. There's massive optimizations that need to be done for each model to run on a different generation of hardware. But it's pretty clear that NVIDIA's not going anywhere. They'll continue to get the lion's share of this stuff for a while.
But do they justify the valuation of the GDP of Germany?
No.
Who knows? Do you know what I mean? Probably not.
Too many incoming near-term threats. Near-term being less than 3 years, right? Which I think people planning businesses that size would consider the next 3 years near-term.
Crazy stat that I heard, top 10 companies in the S. So the S&P 10 now make up 40% of the index, and the S&P 490 now make up 60% of the index. Huge concentration at the top.
I actually thought it was I thought the top 5 companies made up way more than
top
that.
10's 40% of the index.
Maybe the top 5 were like the 90% of the gains of the index.
Aye, maybe, but in terms of the value of the index, top 10 companies representing 40% of the entire index.
And I think
crazy
this is a really scary
concentration.
part of Power is concentrating.
NVIDIA's 7.7% of the index.
Yeah. Power is concentrating to a handful of companies. Now, thank God we've got a handful of companies, and it's not just Google or it's not just OpenAI, right? It's pretty clear now we've got 4 very capable frontier labs in Anthropic, XAI, OpenAI, and Google. Meta's like fucking gone, like nowhere to be found in this whole race. Started strong with the Llama range of models, disappeared into obscurity, despite spending billions of dollars on all the talent.
So what we're really saying is we put a pin in this here is, it's not a bubble in the sense we've got real products getting used. There's voracious appetite for models. Every single token's getting consumed that can be created. There's real revenue. There's tens of billions of dollars worth of revenue getting associated with all this activity and growing exponentially. But the valuations have got a bit out of hand in terms of fundamentals at the moment.
Yeah.
And there is risks on the horizon. It's not a given that every one of these guys will get to the finish line.
No.
It might be a winner takes most business.
And the crazy thing is, the guys most at risk are the guys winning right now, which is OpenAI and ChatGPT, because they don't have another business model that they can use to subsidize tokens.
Yeah.
Google can sell you G Suite, and they can sell you search and monetize you in 1,000 different ways in order to sell you really, really cheap tokens. OpenAI they could eventually have to make money on all their tokens.
In the end, they could pull the gangster move and say, fuck it, just sign up for Google Workspace and you get all the agentic capability for free.
Bundling. That's how Microsoft killed everybody. They just bundled everybody's product into Windows.
So they've got options available to them that nobody's got available to them.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So is there a risk of a bubble and a big market correction? For sure. Am I anticipating a massive market correction at some point in the next 6 months? Yes, I am. I'm totally expecting that. I think it'll be sharp. I think it'll be brutal, but I don't think it will be particularly long-lived, because I think what everybody accepts is there's enduring value to this stuff. Scaling laws are in effect.
Yeah.
The intelligence multiplies every year. The sophistication of the problems we can solve multiplies a year, but we might have invested too much too quick.
These guys make
it, over the arc of time, that will just look like a blip, just like it did with the internet.
Yeah. These guys might take a 10, 15, 20% haircut on valuation, but they're not going to take a 50% haircut on valuation.
No. Yeah. All right. Cool. So AI bubble, we've done that. And then finally, we want to talk about job displacement
again. So we are absolutely ensconced in the business community and startup community. We speak to entrepreneurs all day. We deal with businesses all day. All of our friends are in business or working at the top of businesses or are entrepreneurs themselves. And everybody's having the chat at the moment about jobs and what does AI mean for jobs and what's happening inside their own company. So there's a couple of trends that I just kind of wanted to report back, which is nobody is actively trying. So nobody that I know is actively trying to lay off existing staff to replace them with AI. That's not what I'm seeing at all in business right now. What I think is happening is there is as you see natural attrition of jobs inside of companies, either through redundancies or either through retirements or either through
people just dropping out of the
or just people just dropping out of the company. Those positions are not being backfilled. Yeah. And they're asking the people in those departments with the extra productivity AI to pick up the slack.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the big trends I'm seeing. So it got me digging in again to the whole idea of, when is all this going to show up? What jobs are going to get displaced first? Or let's not say displaced, let's just say affected. Why are they going to get affected and on what time scale? So I've done a bit of research on this today, phoning around friends, using anecdotes for inside my own business, for people that I talk to, and doing a bit of digging on it as well. And I've come up with some stuff here that I want to kind of run through. So here is my take, one man's view on jobs that are going to go first, why and when. So we'll take these one at a time. So the obvious one, so from 2025 to 2026, the first ones you're going to see is high volume admin and back office roles. So it's all the stuff you think it is. It's data entry, it's scheduling, it's basic customer support. These are pure pattern matching tasks. And the problem is that LLMs are already outperforming humans, not just on the task itself, but on speed, consistency, and cost. Also in the 2025 to 2026 timescale is going to be junior knowledge worker roles. So things like paralegals, entry-level marketers, copywriters, early career programmers as well, by the way, are in the firing line. And why? Because AI doesn't replace the domain expertise at the top of these types of roles, but it absolutely nukes the grunt work layer that these people occupy. So far, is there anything you want to push back on there? Is there any context?
No, I'm just imagining people listening and they'll know paralegal that this won't happen to in 2026 and we'll extrapolate that onto the global economy. Like these are global trends, like just because 3 paralegals that are only affected by this and won't be effective doesn't mean it's actually not happening at scale. And then routine service roles with predictable workflows. So things like call center workers, IT help desk, claims processing, compliance checks, anywhere where you follow a script. Why? Because AI takes the wheel. Basic creative production, social media posts, simple ad copy, basic video edits, thumbnails, designs. Not all creativity, just the lower stakes, repeatable stuff. Yeah. AI already does that. So that's the jobs that I think are going to be displaced first and why. Mm-hmm. So that's in the 24 to 26 time frame. Once you get to 26 to 28, you're talking about mid-level knowledge worker roles. They start compressing as AI tools and agentic capabilities start to handle full workflows, not just an individual task. And then 28 to 30, entire families of jobs shrink. It's all bets are off. Yeah. Like that's at the point where it's not clear that human beings doing work on the other side of a computer do anything better than AI at that point, regardless of where you sit on the totem pole. Yeah, totally agree with that. So what? And then I would add in software engineering as well. So
the coding was in there terms of the...
So almost nothing's been disrupted like software engineering, and there will be less engineers in the future. You could argue that there'll be less engineers who are higher valued than they are right now.
Yeah.
The guys who can learn to wield and orchestrate and use AI to prompt and get phenomenal coding outputs will have a higher value than they have today. Yeah. But there will be fewer. There'll be fewer of them for sure in any given company.
And as I run through this, the remorseless logic, it just hits me like a ton of bricks. But it leaves me feeling cold because I always think with this show, we want to try and give people some hope as well, right?
Yeah.
So in the long-term time horizon, it's not clear where that hope comes from, right?
Mm-hmm.
But in the short term, in the next kind of 2 to 4 years, what is your best defense against getting fired? Is it really just getting as ninja as you can with the tool set?
I think it's trying to focus on the things that AI can't replace, like being able to orchestrate AI, being able to point it, being able to evaluate its outputs at scale, to be able to, AI mastery is your best defense of insulating yourself against an AI job apocalypse at some undefined point in the future.
Yeah.
There's no evidence at this point that these things won't need prompting and direction
in the future.
As far out into the future as we can see. They don't do anything off their own back, right? You've got to get really, really good and sophisticated about telling it what to do, how to do it, where to go look, and how to solve the problem. And it sounds simple when you say it like that. It's way, way harder to execute. So I'll give you an example, right? I created a comic strip today on Nano Banana Pro.
Yeah.
and created a piece of artwork for a company that I'm helping in the States.
Which, I know this is an audio podcast, but looks fucking awesome.
Yeah, it looked amazing. But honestly, the prompt behind it was about 4 paragraphs long.
Yeah.
Now, I used AI tools to help me generate the prompt, but there was a pattern of thinking and an understanding that had to exist in order to be able to wield a tool that could generate a prompt that could generate that output. The people that can master that will become more valuable than they are today in the future doing the task.
Yeah.
The value will be associated with your ability to direct, wield, and evaluate AI outputs at scale. They'll be the true people who are actually super hard to replace inside.
And you're right. There is a cadence and a way to think when you're interacting with AI. I did it where I was doing a brand voice, a kind of voice and tones guidelines, GPT for somebody the other day, and the very first thing that I had to do. So you would normally sit and go, Jenny is this, Jenny speaks like this, and here's 10 emails that Jenny sent before. The first thing I did was feed it 10,000 words of what Jenny had said and said, before we even start, I want you to take these 10,000 words and reverse engineer what you would consider the voice and tone guidelines for this individual. And just even being able to conceive of that and being able to know that that's your starting point instead of just trying to stab away at a prompt yourself. So you're right. As you work with these tools, there is a cadence and there is a way to think about them and there is a way to interact with them that you really do need to skill up to learn how to do.
I think high EQ environments as well will be safe spaces for a while to come. Like if you're deep in a negotiation, if you know how to negotiate and you know how to be deep in a negotiation, you know how to read a room.
Read people, and
that's going to be very difficult for AI to replace anytime soon. So imagine that you're selling a big deal, or you're negotiating the sale of a business, or you're negotiating a supplier contract in terms and you've got a buyer sitting in front of you. The high EQ interactions will be very, very difficult for AI. Now, each side will come prepped by AI for that interaction, but it will still all come down to, do you like the person? Do you trust them? Trust, preference, these are all things that don't disappear in an AI-driven world. Trust is one of the most important commodities in business, and that will be enduring for a very long time. So high EQ environments, the best salespeople will still continue to exist and talk to real customers and executives. There'll be whole industries that are not disrupted by AI in the near future, and there'll be kind of
like the trades
and high EQ environments. Yeah.
So again, long term, all bets are off. Nobody really can see beyond a 5 to 7 year time horizon with this stuff, so there's no point even trying to speculate. But short term, if you are in some of these roles that we spoke about today, your best defense is getting busy with the tools, getting ninja with the tools. Spend 10 hours a week, spend your weekends downloading stuff, playing with it, swatting up, and it will still make you stand out. It will still differentiate you in the current jobs marketplace, and that is still your best defense against getting moved on or asked to leave.
I just wanted to throw a Goldman Sachs research paper out there. They're predicting in the next 5 years, AI could expose 300 million full-time jobs to automation globally.
300 million?
Yeah. And so they're referencing this concept of a period of frictional unemployment. So short-term pain before long-term growth.
Gain. Yeah.
So by allowing AI to do that job, it's better at it, it's more productive, it's faster, it does it faster. So if that's happening globally, more things happen, more goods and services get traded, GDP grows. But man, we're left with a problem, which is, what do we do with all these people? And we might need a completely new societal
tax system.
Tax system, society. Do you tax
the
AI?
Tax
do you tax
agent?
the robots?
Yeah.
So there's, so what can everybody do? Get comfortable with the AI systems, become a master of AI systems and how to orchestrate them, how to direct them, how to evaluate their outputs, how to know what good output looks like. They will be enduring skills for a long time to come. As we've said on the podcast from the very beginning, you cannot sit on the sidelines and pretend this isn't happen. Yeah. You're going to get fucking run over.
Roadkill.
If that is your approach to AI.
Yeah.
So you have no choice but to figure out how to make this work for you. And that will be your best hedge in the short term against the effects of job displacement. If you look at far enough, it worries me to death. I think the effects of that, I think the full impact of this will be in full effect in like a 27 time frame.
Yeah.
As 26 kicks in, as all this stuff goes from being real to mainstream, I think you're going to see the full effects of that kick in 27. I'd be watching for youth unemployment, which is already sky high in the UK. What was the numbers for youth unemployment?
14%.
14 or 15% against a backdrop of 4.9% unemployment.
Why?
In the UK.
Because we used to hire kids as interns and as employees to do these remedial roles and to get experience as they build their way towards being a marketing person or a customer support person and so on and so forth. Yeah.
So I'd be watching youth unemployment. I'd be watching the unemployment rate generally. And at some point, I think you feel that government has to... You just pray to God that government right now has a panel somewhere, a think tank somewhere, figuring out what the fuck do we do with all these people in 5 years who cannot make the transition to either this way of working or get displaced by AI, because I spend more time looking at this stuff and thinking about it and geeking out on it and knowing where it's headed, and thousands and thousands and thousands of hours that very few people in the world are prepared to put into it. And my most rose-tinted glasses on, I struggle to see in a 5-year period how this is not a job apocalypse.
Yeah. If somebody can, if a super agent and a series of super agents, a swarm of agents, can do any task on the other side of a computer 100 times better and more efficient and quicker and cheaper than a human being, somebody give me the bull case for retaining the human being to do that task.
Yeah.
It would be... You could get sacked as a director of a company for ignoring your fiduciary responsibility to your shareholders.
And I could tell you, by the way, that we could do all that stuff today with the current crop of models without them getting any better at all if we would just allow them to run for longer. If we had the compute for them to run longer. One example, Theo from T3 Chat, one of the guys I look up to when it comes to AI, he goes to DEF CON every year. He does one of the big puzzles at DEF CON. This year it was like some kind of pirate's treasure thing.
Yeah.
It was based on a German cipher. It was like a X32G cipher or something like that from Germany. It took him and some of the smartest programmers in the world, some of the smartest thinkers in the world, 3 days to figure out the answer to the puzzle. ChatGPT 5 Pro one-shotted it in 1 hour.
An hour?
Because it was allowed an hour
to think
of non-stop continuous reasoning thinking to go and focus on that problem.
Yeah.
So... we know that if models were frozen in time and just allowed to run longer, over the coming years, they would solve all these problems.
But their capability is going to improve, and they're going to be able to run longer.
Capability is going to multiply 10x, 50x, 100x, and they're going to run longer. And at that point, don't fucking ask me what AI
Once these things can run for days or weeks, they're going to discover new science and new cancer breakthroughs and all sorts of shit.
But honestly, just...
Good night.
Just be great. Just... get on board this train.
Yeah.
The best time to start was a year ago, and the next best time to start is tomorrow morning. You've no option but to build up some mastery with these tools.
There is no room in the future for mediocrity.
It's your best hedge against any negative.
No room in the future for mediocrity. Get great.
Yeah. There you go. A good line to finish on.
How long was that?
53 minutes and 8 seconds.
Very good. I'll take that. Solid.
All right.
Keep it under an hour.
Okay, so what episode was this? Was this 28, 29?
Fuck knows, I've totally lost.
All right, give me a second and I'll check.
You've been listening to episode 20.
Keep talking.
Something of the Roundtable Rethink podcast. And in the absence, while Paddy's looking up the episode number, in the absence of Stevie Tel Aviv, somebody has to do the shameless plug for new likes and subscribers. So please listen to the podcast, download it wherever you get your podcasts. We're on all the main platforms. Give us a like, subscribe, and if you get a second, drop us a nice review on the podcast. This is indeed episode 28. So we're going to try and... We've got no travel plans for this side of Christmas.
Next 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah.
I think so.
So we're going to rattle these out with metronomic consistency for the next few weeks, and we're going to try and get up to episode 32 by the end of the year, which will inevitably be a prediction show where we go back and review our predictions from the beginning of this year, see what we got right, what we got wrong, and then make a whole new set of predictions for 2026.
So that's it from this week on the Roundtable Rethink podcast. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.